Okay, I think I just need to record this for my own, just for my own memory. So anything happening that isn't just being aware is not being aware. You know what I mean? That sounds so stupid. I mean, so all the chatter in my head, everything, is that apparently separate self. It's not me. Me, I, being is just being. Being is just being. Anything that's not being is not being. God, that sounds so silly to say it that way. Anything that's not being is the product of the apparently separate self, the ego. And even me right now, even this, what's coming out of my mouth is the ego talking about the ego. Being doesn't talk. Being isn't doing. It's just being. And it's not even the ego being aware of the ego, because the ego isn't aware. Only awareness is aware. Huh. So this is just talking right now. This is ego talking. It's not me. It's not like ego right now is talking about me, but that's not me talking about the ego. That's the ego talking about the ego. This right now is the ego talking about the ego. And that which is me is watching the ego do this. As the ego realizes, no, the ego doesn't even realize, I don't know. It's complicated. Actually, it's probably really freaking simple, but languaging it is tricky. And now I'm plotting. So that's something that we have to do, right? We have to take care of the body. And that's part of the ego's job, to take care of the body. Which is the ego doing its job. And that's how the ego gets created, right? Like, the one being projects this localized awareness into its own activity. Part of its own activity appears to this limited consciousness as limited consciousness. It appears as this body, and this body, to continue being localized awareness, needs to breathe, needs to eat, needs to take care of itself in various ways. Originally, there was other apparently limited beings that were taking care of it in some apparent way. But at any rate, this whole thing of getting needs met in order to maintain existence is what creates the ego, the apparently separate self, not the body, not the projection into time, space-time, but the awareness projecting into space-time creates this thing that needs to be sustained in order to continue to be a place where being can experience its own activity. And that leads to conflict, because part of that activity is friction. There's friction happening. There's scarce resources, or whatever. Apparently scarce resources, if we're going to talk about evolutionary game theory. The most, of course, profound resource, as they say, A scarce resource being time, which is really just a product of thought. Think about things. Time is an artifact of that. So conceiving and perceiving, right? So there's conceiving, thinking, and that conceiving thing is what creates an experience of time. And then perceiving that I have. So another one of the artifacts of this whole projection into space-time is, and it's just this manifestation, right? There is seeing, smelling, hearing, touch, right? Taste, whatever these sensations are. And those sensations have evolved to solve problems or apparent problems with being incarnate projections into space-time. And the thing is, they all happen around this localized point, like these sensation creators or whatever they are appear to happen around the central point. And so being experiences an ear and an an eye and a nose and a mouth. It experiences the sensations that we associate with those, and those same sensations appear to have a relationship to each other around this point, this existence that we limitedly or whatever perceive as a body. But that's not where awareness is. It's just that because all of those sensations happen in relationship to each other, it's this experience of being inside this body, but that's not where awareness actually is. Awareness it has no dimension. It's just aware. Okay, and so then there's this awareness, this formless awareness that is pushing into space-time or into its own activity in order to see its activity. And we can get into the whole whyness of that. But yeah, so I think the whole thing, like, we can't know what that, like all I have is space-time to work with, right? So I think of things in terms of causes and effects and all that. So I think that this all happening has to have been caused by something. Like there's some purpose, right? And that's space-time style thinking. But hey, here I am in this time, space, meat space, whatever you want to call it. So I can't really know the mind of God, if you will. Can't think that way because I can't think outside of this box. I don't have the perceptions or the conceptions to understand how God thinks, if one can say such a thing. So I'm just going to use the tools that I have, which I think it's some kind of analogy of this, some kind of analog of this, where whatever is, however it thinks, it asks itself the equivalent of a question. Who am I? Like, of course, it didn't actually ask that question, I don't think, but like if I had to, I think I've explained this to myself already, like if I had to conceptualize this in a way that makes sense to me, I would be in the form of a question. Who am I? And everything that this is right now, like what's going on at this moment with egos and bodies and projections into something that we think is called space-time or whatever. That is the product of that question being asked. And of course, the question itself is timeless. But this is what the is up to. And I think in asking that question and getting this answer, it is actually giving birth to itself. Like, this is the universe giving birth to itself. This is the universe, like how I used to frame this is this is the activity of the universe giving birth to God. We are the creator becoming itself through its own creation, through its own awareness. We are awareness becoming aware of itself. There's only just this one awareness. Okay. That's enough for now.